Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. Welcome back to another session on internet web programming. Good to see you back on this channel again. So, I would like to start this session with this statement in difficulty lies opportunity. So, whenever you encounter a difficult concept, you should understand that you have great opportunity hiding behind that concept. So, only when you overcome such difficult concepts, you can make a difference. And I find students telling me that the concept is difficult and they keep skipping those concepts. My advice is the concept is not difficult. You need to just spend more time with the concept and let it be any concept, you'll be able to overcome it. So today we're going to see one such concepts which I thought was very difficult, but then it's not so. And it's a very interesting concept. It's on AJAX. I hope you might have heard of this term AJAX. That is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So we have already learned JavaScript, we have learned PHP, we have been coding many forms, but we need to understand what is asynchronous JavaScript. So I'll give an example here. Say you created PHP forms earlier, we had some DB connections. So a form, you'll have many HTML elements and then finally a button wherein the user clicks on the button, data gets submitted to the server. So here is our server, Apache web server, which gets the request and sends the response. But then you have to understand that once when you submit the data, till you get the response back, you will not be able to carry out any other actions on the form. So the form is like one single form, right? Once when the data gets submitted, say when you made a request, till you get the response back, this entire form will be waiting, and then the entire page is going to be refreshed. So yeah, after you get a response, the entire page will be reloaded, we can say reloaded for every request and response. So when I submit, request gets generated. When the response comes, the form as an entire form gets reloaded. That's what we have been used to. But now AJAX helps us with something different. So you consider a form, you can have multiple parts in the form. Say from each section, you can make a request to the server and the server a response. So this part of the form alone will be refreshed. Again, from this section in the form, you can make a different request and then the response comes back and this part alone will be refreshed. This part will not be touched. So you can have many sections in the form, and each request will happen behind the scenes. It will be an asynchronous request. So we throw the request and then once when the response comes back, there's no need for the entire form to be, entire HTML page to be reloaded. Only the section which is making that request and which is dealing with that response will be refreshed. So you can very well split an entire page into sections and you can make different requests to the server and get different responses, and different sections of the page will be reloaded as per the responses received. So this is called asynchronous. We don't have a Y here. So it's asynchronous. I hope I'm right with the spelling, but anyway, never mind. So it's asynchronous. And how this entire communication happens, we generate a request and then we get a response. So we are using an JavaScript object. So XML HTTP request is the class. It's a JavaScript class. We create an object for this class. So whenever you want to establish a request to the server, we create an object of type XML HTTP request. And then we are using the methods of this object. Say I'll write it here. What is the object? It's XML HTTP request. So we create an object of this JavaScript class. You can call it as XHR or XHTTP, whatever it is. So you create an object with a name that is pertaining to this class. And then you have certain methods for this class. That is, you have .send for sending the request, .open. So we'll be using all these methods of this class. And we also have some properties for the class, like properties are nothing but data members. Ready state is a property for this class, and status is a property for this class. So we also have this on ready state change, which is an event handler. So what is it we understand here is, it's very simple. I want to make an asynchronous request to the server. Then what is that I'm going to do? Create an object of this JavaScript class called XML HTTP request. Just create an object, call the methods, send the arguments, pass the arguments, and invoke the methods. You're going to have the connection established. And then when the response comes back, take the response and put it on the web page. So that's how easy it is. Now I'm going to show you the demonstration on what I have coded, and you're going to see how this entire thing works. So let me go to a white screen and tell you what my demo is all about. So I'm going to have this web page, an HTML page, and this page is going to have two different parts. So user is going to enter the user is going to enter the username, and again user is going to enter the username. So these are two different sections. The first section, when the user enters the username, so we are going to make a request to the server, the Apache web server, and we are going to check using a file. So we have an array of usernames. We are maintaining that in a PHP script, so it's just a simple array of names. So when the, say for instance, the user enters, say my name Satish, so it's going to check whether that specific username is present in the array using a PHP script, and if it is present, we are going to just display Satish here. So it's just checking whether a username is already present in the system. Say if the user enters any other name that is not present, then we are going to get the result back as 0 results. Understood? So this is one request being sent, and we are getting a response back, and the results will be put up in this section. And we are using a PHP script, and where we are storing the usernames on the server, we are storing it inside an array in the PHP code. The next section is the user will again enter some username, but now the request gets generated again, an asynchronous request. That is, you create an object of type XML HTTP request and use the methods, and you send this request. Now the server will be calling another PHP script. What this PHP script does is it contacts a table, a database table, which is having the data of all the usernames. So for instance, we have Satish, Ram, Matthew, like that. So this is a MySQL table. It is present on the database by name Satish, and the table name is employee. So it's going to fetch all the usernames. So if the user enters Satish, the script is going to verify whether that name is present in the table, and if it is present, a positive response will be given. So the response will be generated back, and Satish will be populated in this section of the web page. So we're going to have two sections. When we are populating the results here, this section of the web page will not be impacted. When the results are getting populated, requests are being made, this section of the web page will not be impacted. So there is no complete reload of the web page. So that's what we are understanding here. And all these requests are carried out by creating an object of type XML HTTP request. And we say it's asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Why they say it's XML is like a data interchange format. It's like two systems communicate using XML. It's not that we should be using XML. We can also use plain text for communication, which we are using it right now. So we're not going with XML. So AJAX is nothing but asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So this is what we are going to code, and we'll see how things work. But before going into this, we have already seen how to establish DB connection and perform DB operations using PHP, or how to use arrays in PHP and store data. So all these basic things we've already seen earlier. If you're new to these concepts, first refer to my lectures on these concepts, and visit this page or visit this lecture so that you are finding it comfortable to understand all that we are discussing here. So let me show you the demonstration. Let's see how the output is, and then we'll start coding this. So this is the output. So you're going to have two sections. I told you, check username from a file on the server. So we are having the usernames inside an array on a PHP script. So if the user enters, say, if he just enters one letter, S, corresponding username that starts with that letter is being fetched. Say if the user enters M, then we have Mohan and Matthew, and these values are stored inside an array on a PHP file on the server. So there is an asynchronous request that's getting generated here. Whereas here we see this is another section in the same page where we are checking username from the database. Say from the database, if I enter C, you see Chris is present in the database. When this response is getting returned, you can very well see that this page is not getting refreshed or reloaded. See, the results here are just undisturbed, right? If I enter C here, 0 results because we are fetching that from the file, that is the array that's present in a file. Whereas this is from the database. See, when you're getting 0 results, a response coming back from the server, but this page is not refreshed or reloaded. So both these requests happen independently using an object of type XML HTTP request. So once when I press J, there's a request going to the server, a response coming back. And if I press yes here, you see a response going to the server, a request going to the server and response coming back. But these two sections are not getting impacted by these requests and response. So you can have multiple sections in a web page and you can do multiple things without impacting the other sections. So that's all AJAX is about. Let's see how to code this now. So this is a demo on AJAX. Let's start with the web page. The title is demo on AJAX. We'll give that in capital letters. Okay. Yeah. And what we'll do here is we'll have a very simple form. And we'll have a label saying username, enter the username, and we'll have this input type to be text, and the name for this will be username, and ID also will be username. We'll have break. So the user is going to enter certain characters and that character should be sent to the server. And after this, what we'll have is we'll have a message. So when the response comes back from the server, a message should be displayed. So we'll have this label for the message. We'll say the ID here is message. So we'll put the message here when the response comes back from the server. And we'll have this line. So our form is ready wherein the user enters the characters, right? So once when a user enters one single character, that should be sent to the server. So what is the event handler we are going to use here is we're going to use on key up. So when the user enters a key, releases a key after entering a character, we're going to identify that and then we're going to call this JavaScript method check user and pass that value entered by the user, that is this dot value. So once when a user releases a key, say he presses a key and releases it, that value is this dot value. If he presses yes, then this dot value will be yes, and that's getting sent to this function check user. That's a JavaScript function. We should code that. Let's code this JavaScript method check user. So let's code this method function check user, and we'll get the value, this dot value as a string here. The first thing we are going to check is whether this string is empty. If it is empty, we'll clear the label. It means that the user has not pressed any key. So we'll get the label document.get element by ID. And what is the label? It's message dot inner HTML. We'll clear that and then we'll return. If we are going to get in value, what is the first step? We'll create an object of type XML HTTP request. As I told you earlier, the entire request to the server is handled, request and response is handled by the methods of this class. So let's create an object. Let xHTTP is equal to new XML HTTP request. So that's how you create an object of this class, and that object is called xHTTP. Now let's open a request. So it's like xHTTP.open. So the method, the HTTP method we are going to use is post, and the file that we are going to request from the server is checkuser.php array.php. So this file is going to contain the usernames in an array, and it's going to validate and send the response back, and we'll say true to say that this is an asynchronous request. After this, we should be setting the header for our HTTP request. So we'll call xHTTP dot set request header. So this method defines what is the content type we are going to send, and we'll set something like this, that is content type will be form URL encoded. So what is the meaning of this? It's like the content that we are going to send will be in the form of name value pairs. So we'll be sending name value pairs as part of the content. Say if you're going to send username to the server, it's going to be username is the key or the name, and the value is whatever that the user enters, that is the string. So this is how we access it using this name field username, and the value is string. So this set request header is all about telling that we'll be sending a long string that contains name value pairs, and we'll send that http.send, and here we'll be concatenating the name and the value. So username is what will be accessed from the server, and what value for the username, that is the string that's coming in as input. So if the user enters Satish, then username is equal to Satish. So that's the name and the value pair that will be accessed on the server. So in the server, we'll be accessing the username using this variable username, and the value that will be populated is str. So we'll understand this better when we code the server side script, that is checkuserarray.php, which will get this request and process and return. So let's go to checkuserarray.php. See, we are now generating a request to the server. The method is post. We are requesting this PHP file from the server. It's an asynchronous request, and we are setting an header saying that we are sending key value pairs. So this is the name and this is the value. So from the server in this file, we should get this username and check whether that username is already present in an array. So let's code checkuserarray.php. So we'll complete this PHP script. So what is the use of this PHP script? We will receive the username from the request object, and we will check if that username is present inside an array. We will return all the matching usernames from the array as the response, as the server response. So this is the use of this script. Before even starting to code the script, what we'll do is we will understand this specific method in PHP, that is str. What is the use of this? So it's going to take up two fields. One is the search string, and another one is what we are going to search for. And let me define the search string with a value. Let it be defined with the value Satish. So now I'm going to search for yes with an username, and if a match is found, the rest of the string will be returned. Let me echo. Let's take a look at the result. So you see Satish. So what's happening here is it's finding a match, and once one match is found, the entire string is getting returned. So if I find a match for A, then what will be returned? A is matched here, so the remaining string ATISH will be returned. Let's refresh this. So you see the output here. So this is the use of this method stristr. We'll be using this method in our code now. Let's start coding this page. So first thing is we'll be getting the username, $username from the request object. So we'll use the super global variable $_post and pass the value, that is username. So we have received the username. Say the username can be just an S that the user has typed, or it can be SA or SAT, whatever it is. We have received that. And we also maintain the list of users as an array on the server. So we'll give some users here, Satish, and we'll have Ram, Jeff, so some users, Mohan, and Matthew. Next, we'll run a for each loop, and we'll get every item in the array as $value. So this is simple for each loop. What we are going to check here is we are going to use our method if stristr of $username, comma, and then we are going to find the substring of the items that's coming in as $value here. So it is $value, and we start from index 0, and then we run up till the length of the username that's coming in $username. So we take every value, we just take the length. Say if the username that's coming in is yes, we just take the first character of that value. We check whether that is present in username. If it is present, then what we do is we just return it as a result. So let me have a result variable here, $result. We'll initialize it, and say if this value contains yes and the username also contains yes, then what we'll do is we'll concatenate the result dot equals to its $value. Very simple. Many usernames can start with yes. So if the value, that is, we take the one single character and we check whether that is part of the username. If it is part of the username, concatenate the value to the result. Likewise, if there is another name Sam, we take yes, we check whether that is matching with the username that's coming in as input, then we concatenate that with the result. Because when the user enters yes, we should display Satish, Sam, Sanjeevan, whatever it is. So all the names that starting with yes should be displayed back to the output. So we are concatenating all the results. Then we are coming out of our for each loop. What next we should do? We should check if result not equal to null, then it means that we have some result here. We can echo $result back to the client as the response. Or else if there is no matching username, say if the user has entered Z as the character, there's no matching username, so we can echo 0 results. So this is the response that's going back from the server to the client. So this is actually the server's response text. So the server is generating a response text here, and we should handle that response. Say we have sent the request, now we should be waiting for the response. When the response comes back, we should get that response text and populate that in the message label so that the user can view the response. So after sending this request, we'll be waiting for the server's response. For this, we'll be using an event handler. That is, we'll use the object dot, the event handler is on ready state change. And this will actually fire up a function. What this function is going to look for is there a change in one of the attribute values for this object? Say we created this object, right? So we have two attributes of importance here. One is ready state is the attribute name. We're going to check whether this attribute attains this value 4 and status attribute attains the value 200. What it means is once when the ready state value attains 4 and status is 200, it means that the server has completed the response. Server has completed its response. So it means we have received the response from the server. And how is that you know that there is a change in the ready state value? By using this event handler on ready state change. Whenever the value for this attribute changes, this event handler will get fired and this function will execute. So inside this function, what we are going to check is whether the ready state, that is the object dot ready state. Ready state is a variable of the class XML HTTP request. So we are checking whether the object's ready state attribute value has attained 4 as the value, and this dot status, whether the attribute status has achieved 200, then it means the server response is done, and we'll be populating the response back to the user using the label. So how you access the label? Document.get element by ID, and then we should pass the ID for the label, that is message.inner HTML. So now the response text that is sent by the server is achieved as this dot response text. So this contains the results from the server which will be populated to the label here. So that's it. We are done with our function. So let me again repeat this part alone. So we have this object here. This object has got two attributes of importance for us, ready state and status. When ready state reaches 4 and status attains value 200, it means the server's response is done and we can show the response to the users. So how will you know that the server has responded? For this, we are using an event handler here. Say this object dot event handler, and when this event handler gets fired, whenever there's a change in the value for ready state. So when there is a change in the value for ready state, this function gets fired because of this event handler, and we are checking whether ready state has attained 4 and status is 200. It means that the server response is ready. So we are using our label and then populating the response from the server to the user. So that's it. Our response is done. And I see one small issue, but it's a major issue. Like it's not capital TTP, it's HTTP in small letters. So I have made this typo there. So fix that one too. Now our code is ready. What is that we are doing here? The user types some character, capture that using the method, check if that is empty. If it's not empty, create an object, send that character to the server using a request, and on the server get that character, check whether that character is part of any of the usernames, concatenate all those usernames that are matching, return the result, and from the client end, what is that we are performing is we are capturing that result using an event handler, and we are firing this function when ready state equals 4 and status equals 200. We're just manipulating that response text to the label. Now let's check whether our code is working. Let's go to check user.php. So that is the place where the user enters his character. Say if he enters yes, you see Satish is getting returned. If he enters M, Mohan and Matthew is getting returned. If he enters J, Jeff is getting returned. If he enters Z, 0 results. So we were able to generate asynchronous requests and responses using XML HTTP request object. Okay, we have finished coding the first part of the application. The next part of the application is still pending. That is, again, the user will enter the username, but now the username will be validated against a MySQL table. So here is my MySQL database. We have an employee table, and this is present in the database Satish. And in the employee table, we have the usernames like Satish, Matthew, Chris, Ram, Mohan, and Jeff. So when the user enters an S or an M, now we are going to fetch the matching usernames from the table. So this is another part of our application. So let's complete this too. For this, we'll go to check username.php, and in this PHP script, what we are going to do is we will check for the usernames against a database, and we'll return the matching usernames to the user. So whenever we are working with database, we should open a connection and close the connection. We have discussed already all these things in depth while we were working with database connections. Now I'll just include this file, include db.php, which contains two functions. One is for opening a connection, another one is for closing a connection. Now we'll open connection by calling this function open connection. So this returns an object of type MySQLi, and we'll also get the username entered by the user, and this coming as part of the request. So it will be in the super global variable post, and the name is username. And what next? We are going to perform this SQL query on the database. So we'll put a SQL query here, $SQL is equal to, we'll do a select user name from employee table, where name like, so name should start with the username that's coming in. Say if he enters yes, then the name that starts with yes will be returned from the table. That's the meaning here of this query. So we are using a like operator for the query. And next what we are going to do is we are going to check the result by running this query against the database. So for running this query, what is that we use? $connection. The method is query method, and then we pass this SQL string $SQL. So this returns rows of data. So we capture that using $result object, which is an instance of $MySQLi result class. Now we'll check whether the result has got a number of rows greater than 0. Only if it is greater than 0, we'll be printing the result. So while $row is equal to, we are fetching every row as an associative array using the method of the MySQLi result class, that is fetch underscore ASS OC, so associative array. And what we'll do is we will display that, we'll echo that. So we'll echo every result in a new line, dot $row and name that's coming in. So we're echoing the name in a new line. If the number of rows is not greater than 0, it means that there is there are no matching usernames here for the data entered by the user. So we can echo 0 results. So our server response is done. After all our database activity, we'll call close connection, and then we'll pass $connection object here. So we are closing the database connection finally. That's the meaning. So let me repeat what we have done here. Included the functions for database opening and closing connections. So we open the connection, receive the username using the $_post super global variable. Now whatever username entered by the user will be here. Now we are writing the SQL query, passing the username. So it means find all the usernames that start with this username entered by the user from the table, and we execute the query, get the result. If the result is greater than 0, more number of rows are returned, we take every row as an associative array, print the name back to the user. Or else if there is no names that start with the entry given by the user, then we say 0 results. Finally, we close our database connection. So this is the PHP script which handles the request, but then we have not completed our HTML form and the function. So here we're going to have another section. So it's just going to be a copy paste after this line. So he's going to again enter the username. Now I'll just give username DB. Just the same thing, but now it's all username DB. The name and ID changes because we are going to verify it against a database. Check user DB, and we'll be calling check user DB, and ID is also message DB. Because this section we're going to focus on database connection. And what is the method we are going to code here is check user DB. So we are going to just copy this entire method and again paste it, because most of the things will be the same. And what is that we are having here? Check user DB. So the user enters the string. This comparison is fine. This is, let me delete this. So this comparison is fine. We are creating an object, and whenever the response comes back, we are populating it to message DB label. So this is the response from the database, and we are posting a request to the server. Now we are asking for this specific PHP script, check username.php, which checks it against the database, setting the request header, passing the username. These things remain the same. So we are done with our two functions, one against a file, another one against the DB. So here we are requesting check username.php, which we have just now coded, right? Get the username, compare it with the table, and then return the results. Let's check whether our code is working. Let's refresh this. So here when I enter, that is from the file. Satish is getting displayed, but this is from the database. Chris. Yeah. So this is the return from the database. See, we don't have a Chris on the file. So if I give C, that is 0 results. Whereas if I give M here, you see Matthew and Mohan from the database. So the results here are getting refreshed or reloaded without impacting the results here. See, the entire page is not reloaded. That is the concept of AJAX. And finally, we have successfully coded this simple application, and we have understood how AJAX works. So important thing is, whenever you are generating the request, you should create an object of XML HTTP request. Use these methods open, set, request header, and .send. When you are getting the response, what is that you should check? You should use this event handler, and you should check whether the ready state reaches 4 and status reaches 200. Then you can populate the server response back to the user using an HTML element. Here we are using a label. So with that, we are coming to an end of this interesting introduction to AJAX. I hope you all enjoyed watching this lecture. If you have any questions, you can leave your comments below, and thank you all for listening. Take care.